The pines never made me feel small until I lived beneath them. When I first came out here, I thought it would be healing, being alone in the woods, in the old cabin my uncle left me after he passed. A place without cell signal, without neighbors, without noise. I told people I needed space, but that wasn't the truth. I needed to vanish. The cabin is old, slumped like it's exhaling. Wood rot on the back deck, moss blooming between the shingles. It smells like dust and cedar and some deeper, sour thing that clings to the floorboards no matter how hard I scrub. I brought only what I could fit in my car, some clothes, a coffee pot, my sketchbooks, and a box I haven't opened in weeks. Inside it is everything I was before I left, a few framed photos, the divorce papers, my father's watch, and her last note. I haven't had the stomach to read it again. It's been 3 weeks, maybe 4. Out here, time forgets itself. I spend most of the day wandering. There's an old trail behind the cabin that snakes between the trees and loops around a ridge. The pines crowd in close, whispering overhead. They always whisper, even when the air is still. It should be comforting. It isn't. I noticed it the second week, the sense of being watched. At first I chalked it up to nerves. I'd gone from constant city noise to a kind of silence that presses in on your ears. It makes you invent sounds just to break the stillness. But this wasn't invention. It was presence. Something else. It doesn't come close, not at first. I catch glimpses through the trees. Too tall. Wrongly bent. It doesn't move like an animal. It doesn't run. It just shifts, like a trick of the light. But not. And then, 2 mornings ago, something new. A feather. Black. Long as my forearm. Laid across the threshold of my door like an offering. Or a warning. I didn't touch it. I swept it away with a broom and told myself it blew in on the wind. But yesterday, it left a small cairn, stones stacked perfectly, impossibly, in the center of the porch. 5 smooth rocks. No footsteps in the dirt. No markings. Just a tower of stone where there shouldn't be one. I didn't sleep well last night. The whispering felt closer. Like it had sunk into the walls. I came out here for silence. And now, I think, I'm not the only one who did. Last night, I finally saw it. Not a glimpse, not a shadow. Not just some silhouette half swallowed by the trees. I saw it. And it saw me. I'd woken up gasping, the way you do when a nightmare forgets how to end. The cabin was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels brittle, like if you moved too quickly, something would snap. The air inside was thick, warm despite the night chill outside. I opened the door just to breathe. And there it was. Across the clearing, maybe 30 feet away, standing between 2 pines so closely spaced I'd have to turn sideways to squeeze through. It was tall. I don't know how tall, exactly. Taller than any person should be. The top of its head nearly touched the lowest branches. It was thin, but not fragile, more like a tree stripped of bark. Limbs long, arms hanging lower than they should, with hands that didn't look like hands. They curved, as if they had too many joints, too many places to bend. Its skin, or whatever covered it, was the color of wet wood and ash. And its eyes. God, its eyes were the worst part. Not glowing, not red or white or anything cinematic. Just dark. Deep. Like hollows bored into its face, but not empty. More like openings. Like tunnels. I don't know how long I stared. I just know it never moved. It didn't approach. It didn't flinch. It just waited. Watching me from across the dark. I didn't go back to bed. I shut the door and sat on the floor, back against the wood, heart rattling in my chest. I thought of calling someone, anyone, but there's no signal out here, no landline. That was part of the appeal. No one to reach me. No one for me to reach. The sun came up slow this morning. I didn't check the porch until late afternoon. And of course, there was something waiting, a bundle of pine needles, tied with twine, placed gently on the step like a gift. I didn't touch it. I just stared at it for a long time, wondering how it got there. Wondering if it had watched me sleep. Wondering what it wants. That's the part that eats at me the most. I don't feel threatened. Not exactly. It's not malice I sense. It's something worse. It's expectation. I think it's inside the house now. Not in the obvious way, no broken windows, no forced doors. But something's changed. The cabin feels occupied. Every room has that faint tension, like when someone stands just behind you, close enough to feel their breath but not their body. I keep catching my reflection in the windows, only to realize the shape I see isn't mine. Last night I finally fell asleep, if you can call it that. It was a shallow, uncertain thing, more like being suspended between waking and some velvet darkness I didn't want to explore. But I dreamed, and the dream was wrong. I was back in the cabin, but everything was sunken. The floors bowed inward, the walls bending subtly like they were breathing. The air was thick with the smell of wet soil and smoke. From beneath the floorboards came this low, constant sound, like a voice trying to speak underwater. I dropped to my knees and pressed my ear against the wood. I could hear her voice. Faint, trembling. Saying my name over and over again. But it wasn't her voice as I remembered it. It was older, worn down, filled with something that sounded like regret, or hunger. I woke up drenched in sweat, my cheek still pressed to the actual floor. I was whispering her name. I don't remember doing that. I haven't spoken it aloud since I left. When I stood, my fingers were dirty. Pine needles clung to my palms like they'd grown from the floor itself. There's no rational explanation for this. I know that. But reason feels like a worn-out coat in this place, something that once fit but now only makes me cold. Out here, in these woods, reason is just a story we tell ourselves to feel safe. And I'm starting to think that nothing is safe here. The bundle of pine needles from yesterday is still sitting on the porch. But now it's joined by something else, a single, human tooth. Small. Child-sized. I should leave. Any sane person would. But something in me feels rooted. Like if I left now, it would follow. Or worse, it would call me back. This morning, the forest was quiet. Not in the usual way, this wasn't the soft hush of birdsong waiting to return. It was the kind of quiet that feels pressed against your ears. Like the world is holding its breath. Like something is listening for you to speak. I stepped off the porch, finally, drawn by something I couldn't name. The tooth was gone. So was the pine bundle. No trace, no windblown trail. But there were footprints. Small, bare, as if a child had walked across the dirt, right up to my door and back again. Except the prints were wrong. Too long in the toes. Almost hoofed. But not quite. I followed them. I don't know why. Every nerve in my body said turn around, but there was a deeper instinct, humming low in my bones, telling me this thing, this presence, wasn't done with me. And somehow, I wasn't done with it either. The prints led me deep into the woods, past the familiar trail, into a place the map didn't show. I don't even remember the trees changing, but they did, taller, thicker, their trunks covered in deep grooves like claw marks or runes worn smooth by time. The air grew colder. Still no birds. No wind. Just that ever-present smell of pine sap and something darker beneath it, metallic, old. That's when I found the stones. A circle, maybe 10 feet wide. Perfectly round. Each rock worn and sunken, placed so deliberately it made my skin crawl. At the center sat a stump, charred black, as if lightning had struck it 100 years ago. On top of it, a handprint. Burned into the wood. Still smoldering. And beside the stump, laid out in a crooked line, were items that froze me in place. My father's watch. One of her earrings. A sketch from my old journal, one I tore out years ago and thought I lost. All of it untouched by rain, dirt, or time. Waiting for me. I didn't move. I couldn't. The trees around the clearing leaned in, just slightly. I could feel them watching. And then, from the far side of the circle, I saw it again. The tall, spindly thing. The visitor. Only this time, it wasn't alone. Behind it, draped in shadow, was a figure in white. No face. Just long hair. Bare feet. She raised her arm and pointed, not at me, but at the stump. Like she was asking me to remember something I had buried. Something the pines never forgot. I should have run. I think about that now, how simple it would have been to turn, retrace my steps, forget the circle, the stump, the burned handprint, the things waiting on top. But I didn't. I stood there, rooted like the trees around me. Watching. Remembering. Because I did remember. Not everything. Not yet. But enough. That sketch. The one laid beside the watch and earring, it was of her. The way she used to look in the mornings, drawn in soft lines and coffee-smudged paper. I drew it on the day we said we'd try again. One last chance. Before the crash. I don't talk about the crash. Not to anyone. Not even in the note she left behind. I never opened it because I didn't need to. I was there. I saw the blood, the twisted metal. I saw her arm outstretched in the wreckage, fingers curled like she was still trying to reach me. I left that night, took the cabin key, and never looked back. But the pines remembered. The figure in white hadn't moved. Her hand was still raised, pointing to the stump like a judge passing sentence. The tall thing beside her, the visitor, it didn't shift or twitch. It only watched me with those dark, endless holes where its eyes should be. I stepped into the circle. The air changed instantly. Heavy. Thick. My ears rang, and my chest tightened like I just plunged underwater. The sounds of the forest vanished, even the whispers. All I could hear was breath, my own, and something beneath it. Something deeper. Not mine. I approached the stump. The handprint was still warm. I hesitated, then reached out and pressed my palm to the blackened wood. There was a sound then. Not aloud, but inside me, like a door unlocking. I staggered back, vision swimming, the world pulsing like a heartbeat. And I saw something. Not a memory. Not a dream. A pact. Long ago. A forest spirit bound to grief. A watcher, a taker, a keeper of the lost. A deal struck by someone desperate to hold on. To bring someone back. But nothing in these woods comes free. Not even the dead. I stumbled out of the circle, breath ragged, vision blurring. The figure in white was gone. The visitor still stood there, tall and waiting. And for the first time, it moved. It raised one impossibly long arm and touched its chest, as if mimicking the motion I'd made. Then it pointed to me. And I understood. I made the pact. I asked for this. I ran. Not from fear, not at first. It was the sudden, overwhelming knowing that made my legs move, like the ground itself had shifted beneath me and I was sprinting just to stay upright. Trees whipped past me, their bark blurred and clawed. I didn't remember the trail, but my feet knew where to go. Something in me remembered, even if I didn't want to. The cabin came into view like a wound reopened, familiar and raw. I slammed the door behind me, locked it, then bolted it for the first time since I arrived. I even pulled the heavy trunk from under the window and wedged it against the door. It felt stupid, symbolic. Like hiding under a blanket from the monster in your closet. But I did it anyway. And then I opened the box. The one I brought with me. The one I'd left untouched. Inside were the remnants of a life I'd been trying to erase, the old Polaroid of her laughing in the river, her wedding ring in its velvet box, the crumpled remains of the note she left for me, creased, yellowed, but still sealed. My hands shook as I opened it. The paper was soft from time, but her handwriting still curled across it like ivy. I know you'll hate me. But I couldn't stay when all I saw in your eyes was goodbye. I hope someday you'll understand that I didn't leave you. I left the silence between us. I left the ghost of who we used to be. There was more, but I stopped reading. My chest felt full of gravel. My throat closed. I'd come out here to forget. But something older than me had taken that forgetting personally. The cabin began to creak, not from wind or settling wood, but from something deliberate. The kind of sound a person makes when they shift their weight quietly, testing floorboards. I stood completely still. The air was wrong again, dense and cold. And I swear to you, I heard breathing behind the bedroom door. Not mine. Low. Wet. Rhythmic. Like something was sleeping. Or pretending to. I didn't open the door. I couldn't. Instead, I turned out all the lights and sat in the middle of the living room, surrounded by relics of my past, clutching the letter I swore I'd never read. And just before sleep took me, if it was sleep, I heard a voice. It wasn't hers. It wasn't mine. It whispered in a language I didn't recognize, but understood. You asked for her back. Now you must forget yourself. I woke up on the floor with dirt in my mouth. Not a metaphor. Actual soil. Cold, gritty, sharp with the taste of iron. My tongue was numb, my lips dry. I sat up fast, coughing, spitting into my hands, and saw pine needles tangled in my shirt, clinging to my hair like I'd been sleeping outside. But I hadn't. The cabin was exactly as I'd left it, except the front door was wide open. Not just cracked. Open. The lock untouched, the trunk unmoved. And there, in the soft morning light spilling through the threshold, were two new things. A small glass jar, capped with wax. Inside, a fingernail, flat, pale, human. And next to it, my journal. But not the one I brought with me. This one was older. Worn leather, the pages warped by moisture. My handwriting on the cover. But I don't remember packing it. I don't even remember keeping it. I picked it up, hands trembling. The entries were mine. Or seemed to be. But they weren't memories. They were instructions. Sketches of circles. Markings I'd never drawn. Phrases written in charcoal. Bury nothing you want to keep. Name her, and the forest will listen. Forget the shape. Remember the voice. And then, scrawled on the final page in a hand that barely looked like mine. To bring her back, give the pines your name. I slammed the book shut and nearly threw it across the room. But I didn't. Because some part of me, a deeper, older part, was starting to remember. Not the memories themselves, but the feeling of making that pact. Of standing in the clearing that night, hollowed out by grief, whispering into the trees. Take anything. Just not her. And the forest had answered. Maybe not with words. But with silence thick enough to bury a promise. That's the horror, isn't it? That I asked. That something listened. And that it wants to finish what we started. There's something wrong with my reflection. I catch it now, in glances, moments when I turn too quickly, or past the mirror before dawn. My eyes linger just a second too long. My smile is off. Wider than I meant it to be. And when I speak out loud, I swear there's a delay. A heartbeat between my lips moving and the sound leaving my throat. Something is trying me on. Like a coat. There's a place behind the cabin I never noticed before. Not until today. A dip in the earth, half covered by vines and rot, like it's been waiting for me to remember it. I found it while pacing the perimeter, trying to clear my head, trying not to think about the journal, or the whisper behind the mirror, or the nail in the jar still sitting undisturbed on my table. It's a shallow hollow. Just wide enough for a body. I don't know how I knew that. I just did. At first I thought maybe an animal had dug it. But there are no tracks. No disturbed edges. And worse, it's lined with small stones. Bones, too. Bird bones, I think. Or something smaller. Arranged deliberately. This is a grave. But I don't know if it's mine, or hers. I went back to the journal, hands shaking like I'd held something electric. I flipped back through every page, reading every line like it might save me, or damn me. One entry stood out. One I don't remember writing, but that sounds too much like me to deny. If you love something, bury it where only you can hear its name. I sat with that sentence for hours. Until dusk came. Until the wind returned to the trees and the forest exhaled around me again. That's when I heard it. The voice. Faint. Feminine. Familiar. It drifted in from the woods, from that hollow in the ground. Not quite calling me, but murmuring something I couldn't make out. A song, maybe. Or a prayer. I followed it, barefoot. I didn't even notice I'd left the cabin until I was already there, standing at the edge of that shallow grave. The sun had dipped low, shadows stretching long and thin. And the visitor was waiting. It stood just past the tree line, not moving, not breathing. Its head cocked slightly, like a dog curious about a stranger. But it didn't speak. It never does. Instead, the voice came from beneath the ground. Her voice. Softer now. Weaker. Pleading. I dropped to my knees without thinking, hands in the dirt, clawing through pine needles and moss and mud until my fingers hit something cold. Metal. I pulled. A locket. Hers. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside, a photo of me. But not me as I am now. Me, smiling. Before everything. Before the pact. Before the forest learned my name. The locket won't close now. I've tried, gently at first, then with force. But the hinge won't budge, as if the thing has rooted itself in the air. The photo of me stares back with a smile I no longer remember giving. It doesn't look like a stranger. It looks like a version of myself I lost. Or gave away. I sat by the hollow until the sky bled purple. The forest was alive with stillness again, that sharp, deliberate quiet that presses on your ears like pressure from deep underwater. The kind of silence that means something is watching. And not for the first time, I wondered if the forest was ever empty. Maybe it was always full. I just couldn't see what it carried. The visitor hadn't moved. Still standing at the edge of the trees, tall and quiet, like a monument to something older than language. But tonight it wasn't alone. The figure in white had returned. She stood across the hollow, just opposite me. Her feet hovered an inch above the ground. Her hair drifted in the windless air. No face, just that soft blur of suggestion, cheek, lip, shadow. And yet I knew. I knew it was her. But not her as she was. Her as the forest remembered her. She raised her hand and placed it over her chest. Then, slowly, she reached out with her other hand and pointed to the locket. A word bloomed in my mind. Return. Not spoken. Given. Placed gently behind my eyes like a childhood memory I'd buried under too many layers of forgetting. I looked at the locket again. The smile. The photo. I remembered that day, when I took it. She'd been laughing, barefoot on a trail not far from here. We'd spent the afternoon daring each other to jump into the freezing river. I lost. She laughed so hard she cried. That version of me, the one in the photo, he had hope. And I think that's what this place has been eating all along. Not me. Hope. The thing that brought me to the pines. The thing I clung to when I begged whatever lived in these woods to bring her back. The pact was never about resurrection. It was about exchange. And now, with the locket warm in my hand and the ground open beside me, I think I finally understand. To bring her back, I must forget who I was. Completely. I stayed kneeling beside the grave until the stars blinked into the sky, sharp and watching. The figure in white never moved. Neither did the visitor. Both stood like sentinels, like witnesses to something sacred or terrible, or both. I held the locket to my chest and closed my eyes. And I spoke her name. Softly at first, then louder. A whisper, then a declaration, then finally a surrender. I said it again and again until it lost shape on my tongue. Until it no longer felt like a name, but a key, unlocking something that had been hidden inside me all this time. The earth answered. Not with a quake or flash of light, nothing so theatrical. Just a soft shift, a sigh from the dirt itself, as if the forest had been waiting for me to mean it. The air thickened. The pines creaked, not from wind, but from within, like they were exhaling after a long breath held too long. And the visitor, it stepped forward. Closer than it had ever come. Its limbs unfolded slowly, impossibly, like they were made of smoke pretending to be bone. It reached out one long, knotted finger and touched the locket in my hand. And in that moment, everything unraveled. I saw my life backwards, unspooling like a reel of film on fire. Every choice. Every silence. Every bitter word I never took back. I saw her eyes the day she left, full of goodbye I refused to hear. And then I felt it. Memory slipping. My name, unthreading itself from the inside out. Not erased. Given. Freely. The visitor took it like breath. Like smoke. Like something owed. The figure in white stepped across the grave and knelt beside me. Her hand, still blurred, touched my cheek. And I saw her, not as I remembered, but as she truly was. Free. And then she was gone. No sound. No flash. Just absence. The grave was filled. The locket cold. The woods quiet again, not the silence of fear, but of something fulfilled. I don't remember how I got back to the cabin. I don't remember sleeping. I woke this morning to birdsong for the first time in weeks. The door was open, and the light was warm. But when I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize the face. Not fully. There's no fear now. Just stillness. Like I've become part of the trees. Like the forest has accepted me. Or claimed me. I don't remember who I was before the pines. But I remember her. And somehow, I think that's enough.